Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Today I'm going to be explaining the differences between present perfect and past perfect tense, inshallah. I hope that you will enjoy watching this video. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of confusions between the usages of these two tenses, but after watching this video, all of the confusion will be eliminated and you will be able to use these two tenses correctly in your spoken and written English. So let's begin with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So I hope that you already know the difference between their structures. Present perfect tense, subject plus have has plus main verb in third form. Past perfect tense, subject plus had plus verb, third form. Now, when it comes to usages, look at this example. I'm not hungry now because I've already had lunch. So the idea here is that we talk about an action that has happened before now, before present time, at an unspecific time in the past. But pay attention to this example. I was not hungry at 2 p.m. for I'd already had lunch. Past perfect tense is used to talk about an action that happened at an unspecific time, but before another action or before a specific time in the past. So I'm not hungry now, I've already had lunch. I've had lunch before present time, in the past. In other words, we may say in the near past at an unspecific time. But there, now let's suppose it's 7 p.m. and I say I was not hungry at 2 p.m. for I'd already had lunch. So I'm talking about an action that happened at an unspecific time, but before another specific time in the past. So that's the first main difference between present perfect and past perfect tense. Next, I've been to Japan several times. We can use both present perfect or past perfect tense to talk about repeated actions in the past at unspecific times. But the point is that I've been to Japan several times so far. For example, you may add the adverb so far, adverb of time. The action of going to Japan happened before present time at unspecific times in the past. Okay? But here in past perfect tense, I've been to Japan several times before 2010. If we want to talk about repeated actions using past perfect tense, we need to mention another specific time in the past or another action in the past. So we can say it this way: I've been to Japan several times before 2010, or I've been to Japan several times before I graduated from university. For example, when I was a university student, I had the chance to go to Japan a few times, several times, many times, 2 or 3 times. So that's the idea. This action over here happened repeatedly at unspecific times before something else in the past. That's the difference. The present perfect tense, the action of going to Japan or visiting Japan happened before present time. Several times it happened repeatedly in the past, but before present time. Now, look at example number 3. I've lived in Kabul city for many years. Or, for example, I've lived in Kabul city since 2005. The idea is that I still live in Kabul city. If we use present perfect tense, I've already explained this in another video that was about the differences between present perfect continuous tense. The 3 verbs, live, teach, and there's one more, work, okay? We can use both of them in present perfect or present perfect continuous tense to talk about the kind of actions that start in the past, come to present, may or may not continue in the future. So here, I've lived in Kabul city for many years, or I've lived in Kabul city, so far it's not necessary over here, okay? I've lived in Kabul city since 2005, since 10 years ago, or 10 years, 4 or 5 years, you may mention a time duration, or you may mention the starting point of an action in the past, possible. But I still live in Kabul. That's the idea. Okay, the action of living in Kabul start in the past, comes to present time, may or may not continue in the future. We can use past perfect tense to talk about the same idea, but there's a difference. The same three verbs, live, teach, and work, can be used in past perfect tense to talk about the duration of an action, but the idea is different. Now, I lived in Kabul city for many years before I went to the United States of America. Now, when we use past perfect tense to talk about such actions, such activities, the idea is that now I do not live in Kabul city. The action does not come to present time. So the action of living in Kabul started in the past, and it continuously came up to another time in the past, and then something else happened. For example, just to further clarify this idea over here, I started living in Kabul in 2005. I lived up to 2009 in Kabul city, and after 2009, I left Kabul city and I went to the United States of America. So we can also say I had lived in Kabul city from 2005 up to 2009 before I went to the United States of America. So there's a difference. Present perfect tense in this case talks about an action that started in the past, comes to present time, may or may not continue in the future. Past perfect tense in this case is used to talk about an action that started in the past and came continuously up to another time in the past, and then the action of going to the United States happened. So I hope you know the difference between these two ideas. Finally, if we use state verbs, not action verbs, and we should be using present perfect and past perfect tense when we talk about the duration of a state. But if we talk about the duration of an action, then present perfect continuous tense or past perfect continuous tense. We can use both those tenses. Here, when we talk about the duration of a state, not an action, a state that existed in the past still exists and may or may not exist in the future, we can use present perfect tense. And the idea here is somehow different. So let me explain this. This car has belonged to me since 2005. Now, belong is a state verb. It does not show any action. It shows ownership. Therefore, it is a state verb. So, this car has belonged to me since 2005. It means that in 2005, I bought this car, and the state of owning this car, or the state of having this car, started in 2005. The state of the ownership still exists at present time and may or may not exist in the future. I may keep it or I may sell it. So that's the idea. But here, that car had belonged to me for 10 years before I sold it. Now, we still talk about the duration of that state of ownership using past perfect tense, but the difference is that at present time, that car does not belong to me, okay? So the state of ownership existed in the past from a specific time up to another specific time, and then something else happened. I sold it. So that car had belonged to me for 10 years, like 10 years ago, I bought that car and I kept it for 10 years with myself and then I sold it. So the state of the ownership came from a specific time up to not a specific time, and then something has happened. At present time, the state of ownership does not exist. I hope it's clear. To further clarify this, we can even say that car had belonged to me from 2005 up to 2015, and then I sold it. So now the state of ownership existed from 2005 up to 2015, and then something has happened. I sold it, so currently the state of ownership does not exist at present time. I hope now the differences between present perfect and past perfect tense are clear, and you won't be confused while using these two tenses in your spoken or written English. This much is enough, but if you have got any confusion or if you've got any questions, feel free to post your questions in the comment section below. Have a great time and bye-bye.